Hey guys, it's Cameo or Rosy Red Charizard here. And this is a little bit of an insight or a little bit of a different video from what I normally do. I can't really say that because I posted a little bit about my Elders Thanos story, but it wasn't really focused, to be honest. So I'll probably end up redoing that video. But this one is about my depression, the anxiety, the mental health, and of coming to terms with having a chronic illness, to be honest. So today, I have my little cow, which is always my go-to cuddle buddy whenever I don't feel good. And since this has to do with my allergies, I decided to bring him along today. Okay, so I was diagnosed when I was about 12 to 13 years old. That's pretty early than most people that I know through the elder support pages on Facebook. So I got diagnosed when I went up to Rochester, New York by a doctor known as Dr. Sanders, which he was only a geneticist through pediatrics, I believe. And before I even got diagnosed, I spent years of my knees giving out. Like, they were twisting whenever I would try to play kickball or just run and hang out with my friends when I was little. And I would have to try to sit and explain to adults that it feels like my kneecap is popping out and turning into a gear and just twisting and then popping back in. And honestly, that freaked out a lot of my family members, and then it turned into this big search of what's wrong with me. And honestly, since it's a genetic disorder, most of my family is carriers of it, but no one actually showed signs of it except for my father. And honestly, he wasn't the greatest dad growing up just because I only saw him every other weekend. So I couldn't sit and talk to him about my problems. So I was mostly alone through all of it. And yeah, of course, you have the family members that are like, well, your cousin had like what is it called? Not ALS. Whatever it's called. So basically, their knees would give out, or they would tear their ACLs. That's what I was thinking of. They would tear their ACLs during playing soccer because soccer was one of the big sports in my area. And my grandma was trying to be supportive and be like, oh, your cousins might have it and everything. And I, of course, was wallowing in self-pity because I'm a 12, 13-year-old that feels alone, going through a very bad depression about it. And I'm having to explain to my family members, like, no, they don't. Because they can go and play sports. They can do field days without getting yelled at by the other students to hurry up. But I fell and it hurt my knee, and I can't stand on a twisted knee. And had to get bullied and ridiculed and stared at for their entire childhood because they're not keeping up with other kids, and then they have to go into a special gym class for most of their years because I can't do physical therapy, or I can't do weight room. I can't lift tons of weights because that's pressure on my knees. I can't be running. I can't stand for more than 3 hours without hurting. And that was a very dark time in my life. It still kind of hurts a little bit. Which, of course, is something that I'm still going through. It's something I gotta go through for the rest of my life. Sorry, it's just my first time ever really saying and talking about it. And Like, given I talked to my husband about it, and he doesn't quite understand because he's never gone through it. And I talked to his best friend about it, which his best friend has health problems. He has chronic illness, but it's a different one than mine, which is really nice. But then you don't want to be a burden. You don't want to keep talking about how much in pain you are. Then when you get injured, you don't want to walk near where you got hurt because you just have a flashback of, cool, I just hurt myself right there. And in my head, I'm like, if I fall again in that same spot, great. Just fucking great. But, yeah. And then you have to try to work with jobs to get special accommodations, and you know that most working environments don't want that, because you should be able to stand for hours on end. You should be able to work like a normal human being, even though you have tons of problems, ranging from your bones to your heart to your lungs. And I was lucky enough to finally just find a doctor that actually listens to me, which medical gaslighting is fucking ridiculous. It really fucking is. And like, oh, everything's anxiety. Anything from your heart to your lungs, or any sort of gastro issue. It's also, oh, it's just your anxiety. And it's like, cool, you learned a new word, bud, but try something else. How about doing an MRI? How about doing an EKG? How about, like, listening to the fucking person? So that's a whole thing, because you have anxiety about going to the doctors because they're not going to listen to you. And like, I've dealt with going into the ambulances, and I'm like, yeah, I have allergies, and they're like, okay, so? And it's like, that affects my blood pressure and affects my heart rate, and it just seems like no one listened. Like, given I've been in the ambulances more than someone at the age of 26 should be in. I go to doctor's offices where majorly the age group is probably your like grandparents, where I decided to go into like internal medicine to actually be listened to, instead of going to like a family doctor, because family doctors are kind of like because they're kind of more focused on a wide range of issues versus what's actually the problem. And sorry I keep looking around a lot. It's my way of, I can't handle eye contact. I have an issue with that. I think it's probably a little bit of autism, because I got diagnosed with that too. So. But yeah. A lot of my depression stems from my medical issues. A lot of it does. Just because I feel like I'm holding everyone back. Sometimes I feel like I'm holding Casey back, and he has to constantly remind me that I'm not holding him back. I'm not different from any other woman out there. That I can at least somewhat live my life normal, as long as I focus on how I walk. I use my heating blanket and AC hot and my meds correctly, and take care of my flare-ups, which for me it's very, very refreshing, to be honest. I went from my ex and his family not caring about my condition at all. I would have to call my ex 76 to 78 times because they would leave me home alone with our newborn to 1-year-old that couldn't walk on stairs yet, and I was up on the second floor of the house. And at the time, my ex wasn't working, and his family, they were working, but they just didn't believe in my condition. I got a text from my ex like last year after he dislocated his finger saying, oh, now I know how you feel. It's like, no, you don't. You really fucking don't. Because I dealt with people not caring about me. I had to learn how to take my straight leg brace off and hop over the side of a shower because no one wanted to help me. And yeah, sure, it sounds like I'm bitching a lot or complaining that, or, well, it sounds like I'm more entitled. But if you're dating someone and they're the mother of your child, even before I was the mother of the child, if you're dating someone, fucking help. It's not that hard. Really? It's not. Then getting basically yelled at about how I thought I was gonna stay in the ER overnight because it was 2 a.m. and I, of course, dislocated my knee and I couldn't walk on it. And then getting told, hey, you have to head home. So I had to have my ex come get me, and it turned into this whole ordeal. I was like, sorry, I was incorrect, but I can't drive because I'm afraid of my knee giving out while I drive because I don't want to end up someone. Which most people understand that. And at the same time, it feels lonely. Like I said, when you get diagnosed with a chronic illness, it feels lonely because no one understands. Not unless you join a support group, not unless you sit there and scream your head off about it, even though that no one's probably listening to you in the first place. Then I ended up with this wonderful man that actually helps me out, and I still have trauma from my past about it. Like, I legit cried to him about it because I feel bad that he has to help me so much. Like, he takes over most of my chores, and just because he doesn't want me to have a flare-up, which I find him amazing. I'm so happy I found someone. And I have watched people on TikTok to YouTube about explaining how their significant other doesn't care, and that I just want to start screaming from the freaking rooftops being like, someone for you will be out there. Someone that actually gives a crap about you will be out there. And of course, the ranging from my depression is like, if I have a flare-up and my knee gives out, of course I'm going to be depressed for the next, like, probably week. Because it's just a reminder of, I'm not normal. I'm not like everyone else. I'm going to have physical therapy nonstop my entire life. I'm probably going to have knee surgery. Maybe replacement knee surgery. From, I have to use a cane for this anime convention, and in my head, I just refuse to use medical equipment because it becomes too real. Then, of course, I have anxiety about... Sorry. Okay. So, I have anxiety about eventually having to use a wheelchair, about having to use arm crutches, and it scares me. It really fucking does. Then it took forever to start to get over my depression, more or less, just because you learn you're not like everyone else. You're not gonna be able to play like a kid. Then you mourn your own life, like the old life you had. So the life where you were able to do everything. And then, well, one day it just ends up... Sorry about that. I just needed to take a breather for a second. So, basically you're sitting there and you mourn your own life. Your old life. About the days where I used to go and roll down hills when it was a nice summer day. I remember trying to do that, and I ended up, of course, dislocating my knee on it and made my friends panic, which whenever I fall, it makes everyone panic, and I feel so bad about it. Like, it even scares my son, and I have to ask whoever's in the room to keep my son away from me, just so that I don't end up yelling at him, because when your knee gives out, it's not a pleasant thing. It's really not. So whenever you're in pain, sometimes you blow up because everything hurts, from the wind blowing to maybe a fly laying on your leg. And then I had to try to figure out how to put it back in, because that was a whole thing I had to learn, which that's not very pleasant either, because you have to get over the mentality of, I never can put my bone back in the same way, or I can't do it myself. Eventually you gotta, because those medical bills are gonna be too high. You really gotta. Or you're gonna be around people, or be by yourself, that don't know what to do or don't know what to say or help with, and you just kind of gotta do it to yourself. Like, whenever mine goes out, I have to focus on calming myself down so I'm not in shock anymore. Straighten out my leg to a certain point and just push. Like, my dad tells me that the way he does it is that he just grabs his foot and brings it to his butt and it pops back in. I'm like, I can't do that. Because when one leg is out, sorry, I'm talking really fast. When one of my legs gets out, it makes me fall. So I either have to land on my leg correctly so it pops back in itself, or I have to land away so that I can at least get my leg out of under me and make it pop back in. But yeah, a big thing about chronic illness is it's never gonna go away. The pain is gonna be there. You're gonna have good days. You're gonna have bad days. Like, I have more bad days than good, to be honest. That's why I don't post as much. Sorry. Then, of course, each person I meet, I have to explain, hey, if I fall, this is what to do. Or if, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, more or less, at the moment. Just because this is a very hard subject for me to talk about. So, being the only one in my family that really had the issue, that I can't really say only person because my dad had it, well, has it to a certain point, but for me it's hard to tell if he has it or if it's just due to him working very hard jobs. But the most aggravating thing to me is whenever a family member comes up to me and they self-diagnose themselves with it, and it just makes me super upset, because I remember my mom doing that, and she's like, yeah, I have frequent shoulder dislocations and stuff. Given I'm not trying to gatekeep Ehlers from anyone, if I actually knew my family was diagnosed with it, I would be all like, yes, I can actually talk to you about something. But with my mom, she was working at David's Bridal, and we're carrying almost 500-pound dresses over one shoulder and using that same shoulder every single fucking day. And this woman is almost 50 years old at the time, and it's like, girl, you can't do that shit anymore. And given her dad has the shoulder problems too, but given he has 100% torn shoulder that they can't do anything about. But yeah. So I do suffer from anxiety from when it it doesn't just have to do with Ehlers-Danlos. It has to do with a lot of things that have happened throughout my life, because with being diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, my mom basically made it so I was a shut-in. I wasn't allowed to go out and do anything, and that she controlled every aspect of my life. So I'm dealing with learning how to be an adult at the age of 26, which is not really that fun, because you start panicking over any small decision that I have to make. But it also had to do with, I had to wear double knee braces from being really little all the way up till high school. And then senior year I had to wear the double knee braces plus crutches the entire time. And honestly, I got so aggravated about it that I would just leave my knee braces and my crutches in my senior classroom, because I hated going to school and knowing that everyone in the student body was going to ask why I'm walking normal but I have crutches, because I dealt with that. I dealt with almost every single student body doing that, and teachers. And then I had one teacher that actually tried to explain my diagnosis to my classroom, which she didn't have a degree in this. She was a freaking accounting teacher, and explained to my classmates what happened because my knee gave out on me, so I had to be brought to a nurse. Like, I fell on a chair. And just coming back from class, or from the nurse's office, and learning about that made me filled with so much fucking anxiety, because I already know I'm different. And her going and doing that and explaining it incorrectly to my classmates, that made my entire senior year fucking shit. Just because, how dare you? How dare you try to explain my condition while not knowing about it, but you say you know about it because my mom told you about it, and my mom doesn't barely know shit too, unless you're fucking Google MD. And it's like, the anxiety from it just made my fucking school year so much crappier, because I already knew I was different. I like nerdy shit, from video games to anime. I used to wear the freaking troll shirts and talk about Minecraft Tekkit to my friends. And, like, if that wasn't enough to already be bullied about, you throw in, I'm medically different from everyone else. Like, Jesus. Sorry, I just went off for a minute, and that was just like, sorry. I'm so sorry. But that was such an aggravation to me. And then when you get diagnosed with a chronic illness, you feel like you're a burden to everyone. You feel like you can't go out and do anything. And honestly, I'm at the point in my life that is like, I'm 26. I'm gonna go out and do what I please. I've been planning trips left and right. I've been going from New York all the way to Maryland, down to West Virginia a few times. We have plans to go to freaking New York City, Camp Dakewood, and plan to go to each neighboring state, which I'm excited for. But when you get diagnosed, you feel like your world ended right at that. It's like right when you're getting told about, yes, you have this one thing. It feels like your world's ending. It really does. Because you just got told, your life's gonna be 100% different for the rest of your life, bud. And it's just kind of like, it puts you in a dark hole. It really does, to be honest. And if you guys ended up getting diagnosed with a chronic illness or want someone to talk to, reach out to me, please. I will talk to you about trying to get through all of this. I know I might not be the greatest one to talk to if my condition is different from yours, but I understand the depression and feeling lonely about it, and the anxiety about having to go into doctors, having to figure out what the rest of your life's gonna be like, if you need mobility aids, and your fear of using the mobility aids, and how you feel like you're underneath this watchful eye of everyone and feeling judged. Like, honestly, please reach out to me, or at least reach out to a family member or a friend that you really trust. Like, for me, my two support groups on Facebook help a lot. I don't really talk much in it. It's just mostly I read what people go through. And it helps so much. It really does. I even posted on there a couple times about my YouTube channel, which I'm not trying to be like going through the groups and just be like, watch me or whatever. I'm not trying to like advertise myself on purpose. I'm just trying to make it so I have a nice community that people can actually go to. And I keep losing my train of thought because I very much go on rambles. And I'm also trying to make myself get too worked up again. Thank God I have Mr. Cow with me. But yeah, I also have anxiety about the possibility of my son having my condition, which it's very scary to think about. My condition's genetic, and there's different variations of it. And sure, I have Ehlers-Danlos or the hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos, but at the same time, I don't want him to have the vascular version. I don't want him to have my condition. Usually, it can be found out within the first 6 months of their life because of their heart murmur or prolapse valve in your heart, which so far he doesn't have it, but there's always that fear because I hated going to the doctors constantly. Like, I understand it's important for my health and make sure I'm okay, but honestly though, it's scary. It really is. Because maybe the next time you go in, there's going to be a new health problem and more meds you gotta take, to more physical therapy you gotta do, or maybe you have to spend even more money to go to a specialist that's not even in your town. Maybe you have to travel to a big city. Like, I'm from a very small town in New York, and I had to drive almost 2 to 3 hours to get to my doctor's office. Like, I remember having to drive almost 4 to 5 hours, and then they would tell me nothing's wrong with me, and I would have to leave. And that happened when I was having my son too, and it was very, very disappointing. Especially I had to pay that bill since I showed up. So, but yeah. But yeah, sorry about this whole sad and kind of dark video, but I thought it would be nice for everyone, or at least for the ones that understand how I feel. Even if you're an empath, it would probably be nice to watch this, just so if you have a family or a friend, family member or a friend that has a chronic ill condition, you can at least be more open-minded. And if they start saying they hurt, they're probably fucking hurting, to be honest. Like, most chronic ill people have a very high pain tolerance, a lot higher than a normal person's. And if they're crying about their pain, yeah, it hit their normal pain threshold, which I want to say for more chronic ill people, it goes from, I want to say once it hits about 8 to 9, that's where I start to tear up a little bit, or at least that's when I start voicing about myself hurting a lot, where a 9 or a 10 for a normal person would be like a broken bone. But I want to say in my boat, or at least in my, what is that word? Sorry, I'm kind of blanking because this is a lot to talk about for me. But yeah, for a person that has the chronic illness, they won't really voice it until it breaks them. And I'm one of the ones that won't take meds until I'm forced to type scenario. So I won't probably take ibuprofen, Tylenol, any of that stuff until I reach like a 9 or a 10 in my pain scale, and it goes up to like a 12 to 13. Where sometimes those meds don't even help, to be honest. That's why most of us are on like tramadol to something that's a little stronger of a narcotic, to be honest. But yeah. Well, I think that's all I really wanted to get out there. If you guys want to learn more about my depression or anxiety or ADS or even just chronic illnesses, let me know. I can do another video on it. And I would like to thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and yeah, keep an eye out for your chronically ill friends, and please keep them try to make accommodations for hangout times, okay?